Welcome to a new Smart Money video, and today we're going to look at risk and a paradigm for evaluating risk. Risk is a part of life. We can embrace it and we can use it in our favor to help us make decisions, or we can run from it and avoid it. If we avoid it, we will inevitably avoid the opportunities that come along with risk, because the two go hand in hand. If there is very little risk, there is very little opportunity to be had. In fact, if you see an opportunity that has almost no risk attached to it, you have to ask yourself, is this a scam? Is this real? Is this something which can really happen? Or is it too good to be true? If you would like to get more videos on business, finance, and personal growth, please consider subscribing to the channel. Now, risk has a partner in crime, and it's called fear. Fear is really something that prohibits and stops a lot of people from acting. But fear is ultimately not real. It is like a hologram. You see it before you and it looks very daunting. But the moment you step into it, you realize it is not real. And so fear and risk work hand in hand, because while your risk is unquantified, while it is unknown, and it is just something that is gnawing at the back of your mind, risk will be associated with fear. The moment you step into that fear, evaluate the risk for what it is, that fear will dissipate. And this leads us towards the paradigm that we can use to evaluate risk. And I'm going to cover that in a moment, along with two examples, one from personal life and one from business. There was a little book that I read, and it was called The 10 Distinctions Between Middle Class and Millionaires. And in it, it contained this piece of knowledge, which is really helpful for evaluating risk. And what the author writes is this: quite simply, ask yourself 3 questions. The first question is, what is the best that can happen? What's the absolute best outcome that can happen? Then ask yourself, what is the most likely thing that'll happen? And lastly, ask yourself, what is the worst that'll happen? Once you have thought through that, with any opportunity, with any risk, then you are in a position to evaluate your risk. You see, if the most likely thing to happen moves you closer to your goals, then it is something that you want to do, as long as you can live with the worst thing that can happen. So if the most likely thing moves you closer to your goals and you can live with the worst thing that can happen, then you should take that opportunity. It's going to be okay. You can live with the outcome no matter what happens. And not only that, but if it works out, it moves you closer to your goals. Now for the 2 examples. Example number 1, in your personal life. You think about buying a home. And when you think about buying a home, it's going to be a costly affair. And if you're wrong, what does it mean? Well, let's think about it. You're unsure whether this home is the right one for your family. The rooms aren't quite right. The size of the garden isn't quite right. The area is okay. So let's look. What's the best that can happen? Well, the best that can happen is actually you haven't figured out the living space properly. And once the family's in there, everything works out and it's all perfect. What's the most likely thing that happens? The family moves in there. Some of the habits start to change. The children act in slightly different ways. The way you meet and the way you conduct yourselves in the home changes a little bit. But ultimately it's okay. It's actually a nice space. It's a good place to be. And what's the worst that happens? The worst that happens is you move in there, no habits change, there's no adjustments, and it is a total failure. You then have to sell the house, and you need to see if you can recover the money that you've spent it or not. You probably lose some fees, maybe 5%. So let's determine the worst as you lose 5% of the value of the house. Can you live with losing 5% of the value of the house? If yes, and your goal is to have a nice place for your family to live, then you will move closer to your goal. So the most likely outcome is the family's okay. The worst that happens is you lose 5% and maybe 6 months of time. If you can live with that, go for it. If you can't, don't do it. Say you're a manager in a business and you're thinking about hiring a new person for the team. Now this person has some great digital skills that can help you with a particular problem that you have. Now, What is the best that can happen? Well, they're an outstanding employee. They add immense value. Their skills completely revolutionize what's been done. And what's the most likely thing to happen? Well, the most likely is that they're going to be a conscientious, good, reasonable human being who will add value where they can. And if you've done a good job of assessing their skills versus the job that you have for them, they're going to get it done and things will move forward a little bit. The team will grow and the company will move forward. What's the worst that can happen? Well, the worst that can happen is it's a total catastrophe. The person is absolutely the wrong person for the job. So your plans for digital expansion are put on hold and you enter into the 3-month probation period with this person. You go through that 3-month period and you find out they really are not the right person. So you lose those 3 months, plus perhaps another 3 months to recruit someone else. So you lose 6 months. So the worst that can happen is you lose a little bit of money, 3 months of salary, you lose 6 months of time. The most likely thing that can happen is that they're going to get the job done and move you towards your goal as a manager. So can you live with that? Can you live with losing 6 months of time? If yes, hire the person. If no, keep searching, find someone else. Well, I hope that this has been a thought-provoking video on risk and opportunity. And remember, ask yourself, what is the best that can happen? What is the most likely thing to happen? And what is the worst thing that can happen? Please remember to share the video because together we can create an abundance.